Okay, welcome back everyone to the weekly PARSHAS Shir. A very big double Parsha of ACHREI-KEDOSHIM. Lots and lots that we could speak about, but I would like to focus in on one point tonight. The pasuk says like this, Leisasu ava b'mishpat, you should not obstruct justice, judgment. It's talking to judges, that they should make sure that they do things, ehrlich, in the right way. Leisisa p'nei dal, do not show favoritism to a poor man. You might think to yourself that the guy is so poor, Nebach, the other guy is so rich, he doesn't even need the money. I'll make sure that the poor one wins. You can't do that. V'leisedar p'nei gadol, so too you cannot show any favoritism to a gadol, to a wealthy person, to a powerful person. You cannot do anything like that. And then the Torah says, B'tzedek tishbod amisecha, in righteousness, in justice, tishba, you should judge amisecha, your fellow Jew. Now that's pretty obvious. That's what the pasuk is talking about. It says over here, don't obstruct any justice, and you have to make sure you don't show favoritism to the poor, and don't show favoritism or put down the rich. So of course, b'tzedek tishba amisecha, you must judge your fellow Jew, b'tzedek, in righteousness, in fairness and the like. So why is the Torah saying that? That's an obvious thing. The Torah doesn't have to tell us what is obvious. If I'm telling you already that you have to do things in the right way, and you cannot do things that are in the wrong way, and you cannot obstruct justice, and you cannot show favoritism in the judgment that you're making, then I know. B'tzedek tishbod amisecha, judge them righteously. So what is the Torah adding over here? So Rashi writes the following words. He explains, what is this verse coming to teach us? It's not really talking about the judges when they're sitting in their office or they're sitting in the courtroom. It's not talking about the poor man standing in front of you or the rich man standing in front of you. Make sure that you don't obstruct justice and show favoritism. It's talking about every single person in the world is nothing less than a judge. And we are judging people all day long. We meet a person, right away we look at the way that they dress and we begin to judge them. We sit down and we talk to somebody, we begin judging the way that they talk, the way that they walk, the way that they look. People do things to us, we are the ultimate judge. We are judging all of the time when we are dealing with people. Says Rashi, he's quoting a Gemara, and the Gemara says, you know what this means over here? B'tzedek tishbod es amisecha, that you have to judge your fellow Jew, b'tzedek, with righteousness. Hevidan es chavercha lechavzuchus, you must judge your fellow Jew favorably. It means over here that just as a judge cannot obstruct justice, and just like he cannot show favoritism to anybody else, he must judge things honestly. That's for the judge. But when it comes to a person who's dealing with other human beings, and people that do things to you, interactions that you have, relationships that you are dealing with, you have an obligation, says the Torah, Hevidan es chavercha, judge your friend, lechav zechus, you have to judge them for the side of good. You must judge them favorably. And this Rav Hirsch writes over here that a judge and a person are two different things. A judge must always look to find what the person did wrong. He must always look to see every single detail that is there to make sure that no stone goes unturned. So that when he's dealing with these scales of justice, everything is going to be exactly the way that it should. No one's going to get off scot-free over here. But a person, when I'm dealing with others, when I'm dealing with human beings, when I have somebody in front of me that seems to have done something wrong, I have an obligation to judge them favorably and try my best to find a way not to judge harshly, not to look down on them, not to condemn them, not to find what is wrong, but rather try to find the good and the right that is in the things that they are doing. And therefore says Rashi, That's what the Torah is teaching us over here. When you meet another person, when you deal with people, when you have a wife, you have a husband, you have children, you have employees, employers, you have people that you're dealing with on a constant basis, you must learn how to judge them on the side of good and not on the side of bad. Now, of course, Chazal tell us that's all with a regular person. Regular people that are, we see their actions, can't always tell exactly what they're doing right or wrong. We don't see them being wicked people. We see them being just regular, run-of-the-mill type of people. So we have an obligation to judge them favorably. But of course, if you would come upon a rasha, wicked person, if you come upon a person that constantly keeps doing the wrong thing over and over and over and over again, you have an apikor, someone that's a heretic or the like, people that are doing things negatively always, you have no obligation then to judge that person favorably, just that you should know that. That person, you can even judge them unfavorably because you could assume if everything they do is wicked, so then it must be right now what they're doing is wicked as well. But in general, the average Jew that we're going to meet, we have an obligation to do our best to judge them favorably. Says the Torah Temima on these words, why is the natural thing that a Jew should do is to judge another person favorably? I mean, if the person offended me, the person wronged me, the person let me down, the person upset me, they disappointed me, they frustrated me, so why can't I just judge them on face value? You said this, and you did this, and you made a mistake, I'm going to hold you accountable for that. Why do I have an obligation to go out of my way? Sometimes, as we're going to see, to bend over backwards to try to find a way to judge this person in a favorable manner. And the Torah Temima writes the following, if you see your friend do something that you could judge it either favorably or you could judge it unfavorably, you have to judge it favorably. Why? The reason is near mishum dekol adam yesh lo cheskas kashrus. Every single person has what's called cheskas kashrus. We look at the person and we believe that they're actually a good person. Every person, again, unless you're coming upon a rasha, a wicked person who has proven himself to be wicked, but the average person in the world, the average Jew that you are going to come in contact with, the average person that you're going to meet, they're not wicked people. The average person has what's called cheskas kashrus. We deem them to be a good and a decent person. And therefore, and therefore we have to uphold them in this chazaka, in this place where they are, that they are deemed to be a good person. And since that I look at this person as being positive, as being good, as not being wicked, as not trying to with venom to go out and get me, I'm obligated to do everything within my power to find the reason why it is that they did something good and not something bad. Now some people it's much easier with. Some people, they lend themselves to be able to always find the good that is there. And some people, as we shall see when we go along tonight, much, much more difficult. Nevertheless, and notwithstanding, every single person is obligated to the best of their abilities to try to be able to find the good in something that someone does. So a beautiful Maisa, there was a Rabbi in Yerushalayim who teaches children, young children, and one of his sterling character traits is he's always on time. Not always is he always on time, he's always early. This Rabbi will never ever show up late for school. If school starts he's supposed to be there 8:15, he's always there at least 8:13. You'll never see him come late. And if you have to stay till the end, he stays till the very end, he'll never leave early. And everybody knows it about this Rebbe. He is maybe never was late in his entire life. There was the old mashkiach in Ner Yisrael was Dovid Kornglass, and they said that you could set your watch according to him. Because every day he was so medukda, he was so exact. Every day at 8:33 he would walk down this street over here, and at 8:40 he was walking over here, and at 8:43 he's always walking through the doors of the yeshiva, and by 8:45 he was standing in his place. He would never, you could set your clock. So this Rebbe was similar. You could set your clock by him. Never late, never missed anything. That's the way that it was. One day, as he's waiting for the bus to come, there's like some trash, there's a garbage truck that's getting in the way of the bus, and it's taking forever to get through, and the bus is blocked. And it cannot come to the stop, and it cannot go, and he's looking at his watch. I'm going to be late. I'm going to be late. I'm never late. How could I be late? So he's looking around. What's he going to do? The bus is behind his garbage truck. There's no way that it can move. So he says, you know what? I'm never late. That's my meter. That's my trait. And he flags down a taxi and he says, take me to the school. And he gives him the address. And they get on the road and they start driving. And as they're driving, the traffic that day in Yerushalayim is horrendous. It looks like the 101 at about 9 o'clock in the morning. It is, and 10 o'clock in the morning, and 11 o'clock in the morning, and 12, and 3 in the afternoon. It's terrible, the traffic, you can't move. And he realizes that for the first time, he's probably going to be late to school. And sure enough, he gets out of the taxi, and he's running up the stairs, and he's running to the room, and he looks at his watch. He's 5 minutes late. He's never 5 minutes late. As he comes to the door of the classroom, one of the boys walks out of the room and holds up his hand, and he goes like this, and he's showing his watch. And the Rebbe says, a chutzpah? Such a chutzpah? What kind of an ingracious kind of a boy is this? So brazen? I'm never late in my life. And right away he walks out and he's showing me his watch like this, that I'm late? And the Rebbe wanted to lash out at this boy. But he made a deal with himself many, many years before. Whenever he would feel kas, whenever he would feel anger beginning to well up inside of him, he made a deal. I will never act on the moment. I will always wait at least a half an hour to see if the anger will subside, and then if I need to speak to somebody, I need to express my feelings and my opinions, then most likely I'll be much more calmed down. I will not get angry. What a great thing if we would all do such a thing. And so the Rebbe controls himself, and he looks at the kid and sends him back into the classroom, and he sits down and he begins teaching. And he doesn't say a word to this child. And he begins teaching, and he gets into it, and he forgets a little bit what's going on. He forgets about the chutzpah, the brazenness of this young boy, and he teaches, and finally, after about an hour and a half or so, the first bell of recess rings. And all the kids jump up, and they start running out. Except for the mechutzev, except for that one boy who was so brazen, he went like this. And now the Rebbe said, okay, I have my chance. I'm going to speak to this boy and tell him, you don't treat a Rebbe like that. And before the rabbi can get anything out of his mouth, the boy says, Rebbe. He says, do you see? I got a new watch. And I didn't show anybody my watch. Not last night, not today, nobody. I wanted you to be the first one to see my new watch. You see, do you like my watch? And the Rebbe said, wow, that is a beautiful watch. You should wear it well. Now go play. And he said he learned such a valuable lesson in what it means to be dan, kol adam lechav zchus, that you have to judge every single person favorably. You have to look for the good. You have to try to see, maybe it's not what I think that it is. Because even the little kid who looks like the mechutza, if he looks like he's shaking the watch in front of my face, you're late. That's not what he was saying. He actually wanted to honor the Rebbe and show him, you're the first one I'm going to show my new watch to. And so the Mishnah tells us, before we get to the Mishnah, the Rabbeinu Bechaya writes over here on this pasuk, B'tzedek tishpat amisecha, you have to judge your fellow Jew b'tzedek, in righteousness. And he says the following idea, and he says, Shekol mi sheyishbay b'tzedek anyone who judges righteously, judges properly, and this is again talking about a judge, you uphold the kisei, the throne of the king. Shenema, like it says, tzedek u'mishpat mechayin kisecha, righteousness and justice are the mechayin, they are the place of your throne. V'im ya'aves hamishpat, but if you obstruct justice and the judgment over here, halu poigem hakisei asher lemelech, you then damage the throne of the king, v'yizalzel b'chvodo, and you end up disgracing the honor of the king. First says Rabbi Mechai, if you're a real judge in this world, you better make sure you're doing it in the right way. Because HaKadosh Baruch is Kel Emes, he's the judge of truth. He's Kel Mishpat, he's the God of justice and judgment. And nothing can be done to obstruct and obscure that justice. And therefore, when you are down here in this world and you are judging a case, if you do it in the right way with righteousness, you do it with mishpat, with justice, so then you uphold, you give strength to the chair, the throne of the Ribbono Shel Olam. And then he says, but we also learn from here, Imu shoifet b'tzedek, if you judge if you judge righteously and you judge in the right way, Shechina imai, the Shechina is going to be together with you. If you are a judge who does things a way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu would want it done, it's emes, it's truth. It's on the mark, it's in the right way. So not only do you give strength and uphold the kisei, the throne of the Ribbono Shel Olam, you should know, he writes, the Shechina is going to dwell together with you because you are acting like Hashem. However, if you don't do it righteous, you don't do it justice, you don't do it in the right way, then Shechina mistalekes, the Shechina is going to go away from such a person. Judge properly, Shechina is with you. Judge improperly, Shechina goes away from you. Chazal say on this pasuk over here, that not only is it talking to the judges, but it's talking to us as well. Because we are all judges in our life. With every single person that we come in contact with, we are constantly judging them 1,000 times over. And our job as a judge in this world is to make sure that b'tzedek tishpat amisecha, judge your fellow Jew favorably. And do not find the wrong in them. And do not look for what they did wrong. Try to find what is right and what is good about them. And if you do that, you'll be ma'amid the kisei, you will give strength to the throne of the Ribbono Shel Olam, and the Shechina will be shoreh, will rest upon you. But if you don't, and you're looking for the bad in a person, and you just cannot forgive, and you cannot try to find something in there that's valuable, instead of seeing all the negative, so then Shechina mistalekes, the Shechina will disappear and leave. And the throne that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has, you're going to be poigem, you're going to weaken and damage his kisei HaKavod, his royal throne. So the kind of a life that you're going to lead, a life with Shechina or without Shechina, is going to be dependent very much upon how are we going to interact with the other people that are in this world. Are we going to look for what is right, or we're always going to be scrutinizing and see what is wrong? Are we going to be quick to judge, or are we going to be slow to judge and say, you know what, maybe I don't quite understand why they did what they did. Let me think, what could have been the reason why they would have done X, Y, and Z? Let me try to see if I can find a good excuse. They themselves don't even have an excuse. Maybe I'll find the excuse so I can judge them favorably. Now this is really a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos. And the Mishnah says the following. This is the words of Rabbi Yeshua ben Prachia Oimer, Ve'vidan es kol ha'adam, you must judge every person, lechav schos, favorably. Now lechav is a very unusual language to use over here. If you want to say to judge a person favorably, there's many other ways that you could say it in Lashon HaKodesh in Hebrew. Chaf is like the scales. You should put them on the scales of justice and weigh down the scale of zechus, of merits, in their favor. So what does that mean? So the Bartanora writes over here exactly that b'chaf ma'iznayim, when you have these scales, ve'ein lo yachra l'kan, and you don't know which side should it go. You're not sure. Do I put him on the side where we're going to give him the benefit of the doubt, or do you put him on the side where he's going to be condemned? Says the Bartanora, Adam she'ein anu yodim imaisav im tzaddik or rasha. We don't know the person. He's not a tzaddik, he's not a rasha. We don't know. He's a ben. He's a regular person. So then I have an obligation. Midas chasidus. It is like beyond the letter of the law. Even it's a very high level. Judge him favorably. Put him on the side of the scales that are of schus, of merits, and therefore you will find the good inside of that person. Now, Melech Biderman writes on this Mishnah the following idea. And he gives us what he calls Hadracha Yesharais Keitzad Ya'ale B'Yada Adam Ladan Lechavschus. He gives us good advice on how we can always judge other people favorably. Because we all know ourselves. I'm sure that our spouses certainly know how much we don't judge them favorably. And our children know how much we don't always judge them favorably. And our siblings and our friends and our mother-in-laws and our father-in-laws, they know how much we don't always judge them favorably. And the employer or the employee in the office, they know how much I don't always judge them favorably. It must be very hard to do. It is not an easy thing to always try to see the good and overlook the negative. So what should we do? He says, first of all, you must be a very patient person. Don't overreact. Do not be impulsive. Do not get caught up in the emotion of the moment that is going on. Be a savlan. Be patient. And you must extend your anger. Be slow to anger against your friend. Because with a little bit of introspection, you will understand. Amazing words over here. Everything that a person does, you could find a way to judge it favorably. And put them on the side of the scales of merits instead of demerits. Says a Melech Biderman, first piece of advice over here, you must have patience. The reason that we are always misjudging people, and the reason that we are looking down on people, and the reason that we are harsh on people is because we're impulsive and we react immediately. And in that moment when somebody wrongs us and they hurt our feelings, or they make that face, or they do something, or the guy cuts us off on the street, that minute that we see something like that, right away we go and we respond. Hold off, he says. Be slow to anger. Allow yourself a moment of savlanis, of patience. And he writes over here, if you do such a thing, for sure, you'll be able to find good that is there. And he brings down from the Belzer Rebbe Zatzal the following idea. He says, just like when you're learning a piece of Gemara, there's what's called shver sugyas. There are difficult parts of the Gemara, and you have to go backwards and forwards and inside and out and upside down to try to understand exactly what that piece of the Gemara is saying. Rashi makes a comment sometimes that it's almost impossible to understand. What did Rashi mean when he was explaining this line in the Gemara? So you spend time and you work it through until suddenly you arrive at a clarity and you find the meaning of what he was saying. Says the Belzer Rebbe, guess what? There are very difficult people in this world as well. There are very complicated people in this world as well. And they're also a sugya, they're also a whole learning process that you have to go through. And just like you would spend a lot of time trying to figure out and understand better what the Gemara was saying, what the Rashi was saying, what Tosfos might be saying, and you go through it again and again to be able to see the clarity and the truth of his words, when it comes to dealing with another person, if they're kasha, if they're difficult, if they're hard to understand, he says you should learn them up like a sugi in Shas. You should find a way to get down to the nitty-gritty of who the person is, to understand them better, so that you'll be able to reach clarity and understanding of who they are and what they are and why perhaps they did this particular thing that offended you and hurt you. And then you will see the truth, and then you will judge them favorably instead of not favorably. And he says over here the following idea. He says, Be'emes omro, the truth is, I want to give you an easy way to judge everybody favorably. First of all, you have to understand every single person is different. Every single person has different character. They have different traits. They have a different ruach, a whole different spirit about them. Everyone is different. They have different situations in life that they are coming from. They grew up in a different house. They grew up in a different town. They experienced many, many different things than you did in your life. And you should know, because of who they are, and because of what they experience in their life, that is why, or that itself is the shorsh, it's the root of all of their actions. Since that this person has a whole life, you're just meeting the person right now, sometimes for the first time, and you're ready to judge them on the spot. How could you do such a thing? Do you know who this person is? Do you know where they were raised? Do you know who their parents are? Do you know where their siblings are? Do you know what they went through when they were in school? Do you know if they were ever bullied? Do you know if this person ever had, they got straight A's, they got straight F's? Do you know? Do you know that did they make a lot of money in their business? Did they end up failing in their business? Do you know? You don't know. And whatever that person has gone through in their life and experienced, they are the sum package of what, that's the word, they are the sum total of all of the parts. And therefore, says Rav Melech, how could you have complaints? And how could you look down on your friend? Maybe when you will begin to understand his situation in life, and the whole way that he behaves, then you'll be able to understand why he does what he does. And if you don't understand a person like that, he's saying over here, you have no right at all to judge that person. If you cannot get into their world, you cannot get into their life, you cannot understand why they're doing the things that they are doing, you didn't spend the time to research this person, so then don't be so quick to judge, because you don't understand what it is that you are judging. And therefore a person has an obligation to try to see the good in who they are. You have an obligation to find the good in what they have done. You have an obligation to find excuses for the things that they are doing, in order that you should not judge another person in a negative way. And he continues over here, and he says from the Horowitz, famous commentator, before you judge your friend, you need to think to yourself, as if you yourself are the one who behaved in such a way. You ready to judge this other person? First you have to look at yourself, what if that was me that did that? What if I was the one that acted in such an egregious way? And that's, he says over here, put yourself in your friend's place and judge yourself. How would you want to be judged? If you did something that somebody else would find offensive, how would you want to be judged? If you did something else, done something that somebody else would find, you did something that somebody else would find surprising that you could act in this way, how would you want to be judged? If you did something that was below your dignity, how would you want other people to judge you? Would you want them to condemn you in an instant? Would you want them to lash out at you? Would you want them to call you names? Would you want them to shun you? Or would you want them to judge you favorably? And just like a person always looking for the schus, for the merit inside of themselves, like, somebody, you do something, somebody gets upset with you, what do? We become Mr. Defensive right away. And we start defending ourselves. We're all lawyers. We're like defending ourselves. No, you don't understand the reason I did it. For you, I have no patience. But for me, you have patience with me, I will defend myself till I turn blue in the face. And he says over here the following. We're always trying to find terutzim, excuses why we did what we did. You have to judge your friend in the same exact way. If I expect others to judge me favorably, if I'm always judging myself favorably, and I'm always coming up with every excuse under the sun why I did what I did wrong, I know that I did the wrong thing, but I'll never admit it. I'll never say so. Husbands and wives, this is like the classic thing, husbands and wives. They are arguing with each other. The husband really did a terrible thing. Whatever, he forgot the birthday for the 29th year in a row. He forgot the anniversary for the 30th year in a row, whatever it might be. He was supposed to go and pick up the kids, and he just forgot to pick up the kids. And his wife gets a call from her son at school. He's crying, Mommy, where are you? She said, I'm busy. I'm at an appointment today. Where are you? I'm at school. What, Tati, Abba didn't come pick you up? No, he didn't pick me up. Then she calls her husband, and she starts screaming her head off. If she did the same exact thing, and she left her kid at school, when the husband thought he's going to pick her up, she would have every excuse under the sun. Says Rav Melech over here the following idea. You can't judge another person more than you would judge yourself. And if you are forgiving of yourself and understanding of yourself and make excuses for yourself, then you have an obligation to go and to make excuses and leniencies and easy judgments on others. And he writes even more over here. He says the following. Okay, well, fine, we'll get there. So he says like this. Okay, fine. When it comes to this mitzvah over here, of a person who's going to judge another person, he says like this. When you come to judge your friend, because we're all judges, you have to look at everything about him. That's why it says over here in the Mishnah, it doesn't say just judge your friend favorably. It says, Havidanes koil ha'adam l'chavschus. You have to judge the person in their entirety for the side of good. And he says, how does that work? Don't just judge him for what he's doing right now. You have to judge all the little details of his life. And try to look for all the positive things about him. Until you can judge them favorably. Says the Rabbi Biderman over here the following idea. A person is a huge world. A person is so many parts of that person, so many different composites and components of who they are. And often when we judge somebody, we just zone in on one little thing that they've done wrong, and we overlook all of the good that is there. A wife can end up zoning in on the one little thing that her husband does that's wrong. She doesn't see all the chesed that he does. She doesn't see all the acts of kindness, how he takes care of her, how he loves her, how he's always there. One little thing he does wrong, she has laser vision, that's all that she sees. Says Rav Melech, you can't act like that. You're looking at a whole person. You're looking at a person that has a big world. You're looking at a person that has so many miles, so many powerful, positive traits. You're looking at a person that has so much to offer to this world. Parents and children. A child does something wrong. So does the parent zone in on the one wrong thing that the child has done? Or does the parent have patience, like we said before? Do they take the larger picture into consideration? Do they look at all of the good, all of the positive, all of the nice things that they have in their son or their daughter? And then they can judge that child favorably and not unfavorably. But if you end up looking only at the one little thing, says Melech Birim over here, you're going to lose the battle every single time, and you will never find a way to judge this person favorably. You'll always judge them unfavorably. And he says over here a beautiful idea. The Pnei Menachem, one of the Ger Rebbes, said the following. Why does it say in this Mishnah, Chaf Schus? Not only does it mean the scale, but what's a kaf in Hebrew? Okay, it's a spoon. Yeah? Kapit. A kaf is a spoon. And he says like this. When you are finishing up the food that's in a pot, and you know sometimes on the bottom is the best stuff. You know, it burns a little bit at the bottom. It's crunchy. It's got all the liquids. And you want to get that stuff off the bottom. How do you get the stuff off the bottom of the pot? You take a spoon and you start stirring it around, you start digging in there. Oh, that's the way you get the best stuff out of there. Says the Pnei Menachem, that's what it means over here. Have you done as kol adam l'chav schus? When you're looking at someone and you need to find the good that's there, you got to take the kaf, you have to take the spoon, and you got to start digging in and stirring around and looking and looking and looking to try to find the good. And then when you get deep enough, you'll find something good in this person. And sometimes at the bottom, like we said, the bottom of the bottom, that's the best stuff. And if you work hard enough to look in and dig in and find what's there, you're going to find the best stuff in this person. And you'll stop judging them unfavorably, and you'll judge them in a favorable manner. And Pnei Menachem said one more idea. Kaf, also in Lashon HaKodesh in Hebrew, is the word that they use for a shoehorn. And he says it's an unusual thing. You go to the store and you see a guy try to fit his feet into some shoes, and he's sticking his shoe, doesn't go in. And he's like he's trying to stick it, it just doesn't go in. So the shoe man, the shoe seller comes over, and he brings a shoehorn, and he sticks it in the back of the shoe by the heel of the person. Foot slips right in. So how does that work? Did the shoehorn make his foot smaller? Did it make the shoe bigger? What happened? It's physics. The foot could really fit in. The shoe is really a little bit tight. The shoehorn opens up a little bit of room, and boom, the foot slips right inside the shoe. Says Pnei Menachem is the same thing when you dan lachaf zechus. Sometimes it's very, very difficult to fit that person into a good picture. It's very hard to find this action that they did, which was so painful to me, so hurtful, so offensive, so frustrating, so disappointing, such a letdown. It's hard for me to find the good that's in there. So what do? So you try to squeeze it in? Doesn't always work. But when you get the chaf schus, when you have in your mind, I'm always trying to find the good in that person, then you put it right there, you'll slip them right in to the chaf schus, and then you won't look at that person negative anymore. You'll see them only as good. And this is what the Torah is teaching us. Of the many, many things that it teaches in this week's Parsha, this is one of them. That a person is a judge. We all know that about ourselves. The problem is most of us did not go to law school. We didn't go to judge school. We don't have a gavel. We don't have a robe. We don't have a bench that we sit on. We don't have anything. But nevertheless, we appointed ourselves to be a judge. What's our judgments? About everybody. Everyone and everything. We're like, CNN, Fox News, all rolled up into one. We judge the whole world. Says the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, and the Chazal are teaching us, if you're going to be a judge, you better do it in the right way. And the only way to be a judge of people is, l'chav zechus, do it favorably. Be patient, find the good, look for the good, take the whole person into consideration, understand that everybody makes mistakes. You also make mistakes. And when you make mistakes, you have 1,001 excuses why you made the mistake, and nobody should judge you unfavorably. And therefore you have to look at the other person exactly the same way. Find the good that is in there, take the spoon and scrape around on the bottom of the pot of that person, and see how you could make that person into a positive image, and stop looking at them in a negative image. It will change your marriages. It will change your chinuch habanim, how you raise your children. It will change your friendships. It will change your business atmosphere. It will change when you meet people on the street. You know, something like we said over here from the bells, some of the very, very difficult people that you will meet. Very annoying people, hard people to deal with. Could you imagine what it took for that person? You know, I was thinking a couple of weeks ago, we had this guy, Furry Potato, whatever his name is, came to our shul on Shabbos, and he's standing there with his cell phone, and he's trying to antagonize people in the shul. So he's doing the wrong thing for sure. And we, Baruch Hashem, we were warned beforehand that he might come, and we were told, don't engage, don't talk to him, don't say a word, don't even look, just let it go, and he'll walk away. But could you just imagine this person? His whole life is antagonizing people. His whole life is trying to get people angry and upset, that they get to the point where they're going to push him, and then he's going to call the police and get that person taken away and thrown into jail. That's his whole life. That's what his profession is. Could anybody imagine what kind of a childhood this man must have had? What kind of a life this man was that he chose in his life? His job is, I'm going to try to antagonize and annoy and aggravate people, all so I can get them to touch me, so that I can call the police will put them in jail, and then I'll take them to court, and I'm going to win money, and that's how I'm going to make my living. So, again, we don't have to judge favorably over here. But it's just the point that I'm trying to make. If you want to understand how a person can do such things in his life, you got to go deep in with that spoon and start digging around to figure it out. That's him. But the average person, as we said from the Torah Temimah, cheskas kashrus. The average person is a good person. The average person, not so bad. The average person, we all make mistakes, but you know what? They deserve our judgment in a positive light, in order that we can make sure that we do things in the proper way. And if you do that, says Rabbeinu Bechaya, you bring the Shekhinah down into your life. If you misjudge, or you're too quick to judge, Shekhinah says goodbye. Because if you will overlook what someone did to you, if you will judge somebody else favorably, HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes a promise, I'll judge you favorably as well. Well, we're all so perfect in the eyes of Hashem, never made a mistake, never did an Aveira, never did a sin. We're amazing. Hashem says, no, you're not. But you know what? If you know how to judge somebody else favorably in this world, I will judge you favorably as well. Let me leave you off with one last story over here. In the time of World War II, in the time of World War I, in Eretz Yisrael, the Turkish were the army, they were in Eretz Yisrael, and they were really somewhat running the country. And the Jews that were living there was very harsh times, very, very difficult. Poverty was beyond what we could even imagine. And food was being rationed. Barely any food was coming to anybody. There was a Talmud Torah, there was a yeshiva for young boys in Yerushalayim, in Jerusalem over there. And the head of the yeshiva was a Yid by the name of Rav Moshe Auerbach. And one day, and in this yeshiva, what did they have? The government, the Turkish government, I guess they had some kind of rachmanis on the Jews that were there. And so they, to the school, they gave them rations for all of the students that were in the school. And so when the kids would come to school, there wasn't much going on in the house. They would get a piece of bread, They would get a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and that's basically the way that all of these kids were able to eat and survive during these war years, because the government was kind enough to give the rations and the portions to the school, and the school then would distribute it to the children. So one of the Rabbeim came to Rav Moshe Auerbach and he says, I need to tell you a story. He said, you know, we have precious cargo over here, the food that we're getting, we don't have much. And we're giving it out to the kids every single day. This is, for most of them, it's what they have to eat. And there's one boy on the yard, Yitzi over there, and I noticed that every day he's on the yard and he's taking his bread and he's throwing it up in the air. And I can't believe it. He's throwing the bread. This bread is like, it's worth gold. And he keeps throwing it up and catching it, throwing it up and catching it, until he throws it up so high, it goes over the fence of the schoolyard and it's lost. And I watched this for several days, and I called him up and I said, Yitzi, you know, this bread is very valuable. It's very precious. Not everybody has bread. You can't take the bread and throw it like it's nothing. You need this for yourself. Don't do this with the bread. You can't do that anymore. And I told it to this young boy, and he didn't listen. And he continued throwing the bread up again and again and again and over the wall. And I said to him, I pulled him aside, I said, Yitzi, you know what? I already warned you once. I want you to go home and tell your father what you did, and I want to speak with your father. Please bring him to school tomorrow. So now this Rebbe is telling over the story to the principal. And he says the next day the father comes with his son. And I'm sure that the father is going to apologize. Sorry, my son, throwing the food. You're right, Rabbi, you shouldn't do such a thing. I spoke to him, he's going to stop. And the father looks at me and he says, now I must embarrass myself and explain to you why my son is doing what he's doing. He said, you know, because of the war and the rations, there are literally people in Yerushalayim that are starving. And the school is fortunate. You get these rations every day. You can give it to your students. He says, but my son Yitzi has a brother. He has a younger brother who's at home. He's not old enough yet to be in your school. And we're not getting rations. And his brother is deathly ill as a result of not having enough food. So my son, who's a tzaddik, Yitzi, decided, you know what? He told me, Abba, he said, I get bread every single day in school. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. When it's recess, I'm going to go outside, I'm going to play with the bread. And hopefully no one's going to see what I'm doing. When I get to a certain point, I'm going to throw it over the wall. Make sure you send my brother to be by that wall over there. He'll catch the bread and he'll be able to eat the bread. And he told the Rebbe, you should know that my son not only gives part of the bread, there are days that my son throws over the entire slice of bread so that his brother can live and survive and be healthy. So I'm sorry that my son didn't listen to you, but I hope you understand why he did what he did. There's always two sides to the story. There's always another angle that you can understand things. If you look deep enough, if you get that spoon, you start digging around inside the pot, you could always find the good that is there in the person, and then you don't have to judge them unfavorably. And if a person will judge and learn how to judge every single one that they come in contact with, l'chaf schos, on the side of good, you dig in to find the good that is there. So then, two things. Number one, the Shekhinah is going to dwell with you. And number two, HaKadosh Baruch Hu promises us, because that you judged your wife, because that you judged your husband, because that you judged your children, your daughter, your older son, your younger son, your teenager, because you judge your employee, because you judge your employer, because you judge the person who is standing in line today and they're digging through their purse and they want to pay the exact change. You don't know why. What is wrong with this person? Nobody even takes coins anymore. They're digging through their purse for 5 minutes. They have to find the exact change. The line is getting longer and longer and longer. But you judge them favorably. They have some kind of fetish with coins. I don't know what it is. Must be, I have no idea. So they had to pay exactly $3.37 and they couldn't find the last penny, and for some reason the cashier was being makbid on that last penny. I'm being judging favorably. Says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, trust me, you make enough mistakes in your life. There isn't a day in your life where you don't offend me, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's not a day in your life where you don't rebel against me. There's not a day in your life where you don't not use the koiches, the strength that Hashem has given you to become the best Jew you can become. But you know what? I'm patient, I'm slow to anger, and because that you judged everybody else favorably, says Hashem, I'm going to judge you favorably as well. And I can overlook the injustice that you did against me. You'll never lose out for judging favorably. You will transform yourself and your relationships, and you'll transform your relationship with Hashem. May we be Zaychem Yetz Hashem to take the words to heart and really work on changing the way that we look at people and the things that they do, trying our best to understand them in all realms of their existence, and in that way we'll judge them favorably, and Hashem will continue to judge us and our families favorably as well.